Okay, so just briefly as a general overview, we're going to talk about the fellowships in general, so things that are similar between the two different fellowships that Ford offers. And then we're going to do an overview of the pre-doctoral fellowship, followed by an overview of the dissertation fellowship. And then we'll talk about the review process also in general, things that apply to both of them, and some additional tips. And we'll leave time at the end for Q&A, but also if you have any questions as we're speaking, please feel welcome to put them in the chat and we'll address them either as we go along or at the end in the Q&A. So in terms of a broader overview, both of the fellowships are administered by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine on behalf of the Ford Foundation. And as I mentioned, because there are different awards, there are awards for doctoral students at various different stages. A key Ford Foundation priority is diversifying the professoriate. And this is with a focus on both research and on teaching. So this is for doctoral students who have demonstrated superior academic achievement and are committed to a career in teaching and research at the college or university level in the United States. So if you have other career plans, then this might not be for you, but if you're really interested in continuing on to being a professor, then this might be excellent for you. It's also for candidates or students who show promise of future achievement as scholars and as teachers, and who are prepared to use diversity as a resource for enriching the education of all students. So you have to be in a research-based PhD or PsyD program. And you have to be pursuing a degree in an eligible field of study. And there's a whole list on the program website. I can put a link in the chat in a little bit. And it's open not only to US citizens, but also US nationals, permanent residents, individuals granted DACA status, indigenous individuals exercising rights associated with the Jay Treaty, and individuals granted temporary protected status, as well as asylees and refugees. So quite an open range in terms of who's eligible. So specifically regarding the pre-doctoral fellowship, and again, if you're here for the dissertation fellowship, we'll be talking about that in a little bit. These are awards for doctoral students who have at least 3 years of study left before they complete their PhD after the start of the award period. So if you're applying now, the award period will start next fall, and you have to have at least 3 years of study left after that. So probably you're in your first or second or potentially third year, likely. In terms of support, so with the pre-dissertation fellowship, you get a 3-year stipend of $27,000 each year. You also get an invitation to attend the Conference of Ford Fellows, and you have access to the Ford Fellow Regional Liaisons, which is a network of former Ford Fellows. So just a lot of support for your research and a lot of mentorship. It's a pretty good deal, even beyond the financial support. In terms of the application, so you have to submit an application form, which has a bunch of things like your name and some general information. And there are 3 essays that you need to write. One of them is a personal statement, which is 2 pages, a statement of previous research and scholarly productivity, which is 3 pages, and a proposed plan of graduate study and research, which is also 2 pages. So basically, who you are, what's your situation, and also writing about like what you've done in the past and what you're planning on doing in the future. And because this is a pre-dissertation fellowship, of course, they understand that things might change, but they definitely want to see that you have a vision and you have a plan. And if things change, that's okay. There are also supplementary materials. So you have letters of recommendation. So you have to have at least 3 and a maximum of 5. They recommend that you ask for at least 4 or 5, just in case somebody, misses the deadline, doesn't get to submit their letter, so that you at least meet the minimum of having 3. You have to submit your transcripts, and you have to submit a verification of doctoral degree status form, which is basically saying that you are a doctoral student and you will have 3 years of stuff at the time of this beginning of fellowship. In terms of timeline, so the competition is already open. It opened on September 7th. The deadline is December 16th, so definitely coming up, but worth looking into if you're eligible and interested. And then the supplementary materials deadline, so things like transcripts and letters are due January 6th.
All right, and I will talk about the dissertation fellowship overview. So I know we're doing both. There are a lot of over sort of things that work for both. And as we talk about sort of tips and et cetera, I think they apply to both absolutely. But again, if you have questions about a specific one, you can definitely raise them at the end. So this is about the dissertation fellowship.
And I think you're muted.
So the Ford Foundation Dissertation Fellowships are awards for doctoral candidates who will be completing the dissertation in the period of 9 to 12 months of the fellowship year, right? So this is a completion fellowship, which is again different from the pre-doc that Naama was talking about. The candidates will have to be completed all their departmental and institutional requirements, except of course for writing in defense of the dissertation. So that's what this funding is going to be about. The support. So the stipend and benefits here is a 1-year stipend because of course it's a 1-year fellowship here. It's a completion of $28,000. You also get the invitation to attend the Conference of Ford Fellows and access to Ford Fellows, regional liaisons, network of former Ford Fellows, etc. And like Naama said, it's a really big part of this. You get to meet other fellows who are also dedicating their work, their past and their future to diversifying academia. They have a conference, right? So you could talk to people, you can learn from them. So it's a big part of this application, well, not application, of the fellowship itself. So it's important to sort of give a nod to it when you're writing. So the dissertation components, similar to the pre-doc, but it has more stuff in it, right? So there's an application form, and then there are 5 essays that are required here. The 5 essays are a personal statement, which is 2 pages, statement of previous research and scholarly productivity, which is 3 pages. And here, they're all double spaced, except for when you're writing sort of your publications and your presentations, those could be single spaced, but it's all part of the 3-page limit. You will be submitting an abstract of your dissertation, which is 1 page, and proposed plan for completion and timeline describing the applicant's long-range career goals, which here is 3 pages. So again, here it's about completion. So you're going to describe your dissertation and you're going to write more about the timeline and how you're going to get to that completion goal, as well as the long-range career goals. And then the 5th item of the essay section is the annotated bibliography, which is maximum 10 sources. They want you to write 2 to 4 sentences on each. And here there's no page limit, although of course, when you're talking about 2 pages, 10 sources and 2 4 sentences each, you know where you're going to be. So that's the 5th element of sort of this essay portion of the application. And then of course, as well, there's supplemental materials, letters of recommendation, minimum 3, maximum 5. And again, it's valid for both pre-doc and for the dissertation fellowship, is that the reason they want you to ask for 5 is that you end up with 3, right? So anyone who has minimum 3 letters of recommendation on file at the deadline is not going to have their application reviewed. So this is very important, and that's why they're sort of saying minimum 3 and maximum 5. Transcripts, of course, verification of doctoral degree status form, and that's just that's a pretty sort of basic paperwork stuff that's going to be done on the department level. So timeline, competition opens September 7th. Deadline here, deadline is different. It's December 9th, right? So again, everybody, you have to be cognizant and careful about sort of the deadlines as well, because even for the Ford, there are 2 different deadlines for different competitions, right? So December 9th here, a little bit earlier, and supplemental materials are due January 6, 2022. So that's as far as the timeline is. And like Nama said, if you want to apply, please come. Make an appointment with Grad Fund and we can go over your application. So the review, really, really important, right? So how does this all get reviewed, and how to sort of, how should we write to Ford to be successful? So the positive factors for review is evidence of superior academic achievement, right? There's also a degree of promise of continuing achievement as scholars and teachers, very important for Ford, right? Because it's all about diversifying academia. So if they select you and then but you have no intentions of being in academia, that's really not what Ford is going for. And then really, really important for them is a capacity to respond in pedagogically productive ways to the learning needs of students from diverse backgrounds. So it's diversifying the academia for research's sake, right? For bringing different perspectives, but also for bringing different perspectives to teaching. So the elements of sort of pedagogical productivity and sort of the different teaching perspectives perhaps will be very important here. Continuing with the positive factors for selection, it's sustained personal engagement with communities that are underrepresented in the academy, and an ability to bring this asset to learning, teaching, and scholarship at the college and university level. And that's basically a little bit of what I talked about before, right? The important part here then is when you're writing about your engagement, right, that it needs to feel that it's authentic and that it's something that you've engaged with previously, that it's not something that you're doing for the Ford dissertation, right? Just trying to find something that that perhaps you volunteered for, right? They want to see a sustained personal engagement with communities that are underrepresented in the academy, and then sort of this ability to bring that knowledge to then your position as a scholar and as a teacher. And then again, in that same sort of framework, the important part for Ford is the likelihood that this diversity of human experience, right, will be used as educational resource in both teaching and scholarship. So it's not that you're just coming from a diverse background and then you have, that you're diversifying academia, but that you're using that, the diverse human experience will be used as educational resource, not only your own, but also sort of what you've learned in cooperation and talking to other scholars, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, there's membership in one or more specified groups whose underrepresentation in the American professoriate has been severe and longstanding, and you can find the list on Ford's website. You will have 2 to 5 reviewers going over your application. Not all reviewers will have specific technical expertise, so applications should be written without jargon. And I think we talk about that all the time at Grad Fund, right? It is really important to make sure that your essays are actually going to be understood to the level that they need to be by people who might not be extremely familiar with technical details of your discipline. You will be selecting your sort of first discipline and I think second discipline, they call it. And that's to match you better to the reviewers. But again, they will be coming from areas that might not be perfectly familiar with your work. So some additional tips that again apply to both fellowships and is really important to sort of keep in mind. Review Ford Foundation's mission and priorities, right? And think about, what does Ford stand for? Why are they sponsoring this fellowships? What are they trying to gain, or what are they trying to do for the larger community, right? And it's, they say we believe in the inherent dignity of all people, in diversity, right? They're saying that many people are excluded from political, economic, social institutions that shape their lives. So hence, Ford is trying to help remedy the situation. And again, you can learn more, obviously, as you sort of go through, and you can, on their website, you can learn more about their mission, values, culture, and how we approach work. So all of this is really, really helpful information as you start preparing your application materials. And then carefully review eligibility criteria. And this screenshot is for the Ford Foundation predoctoral fellowship, right? The eligibility criteria, eligible fields of study, right? So you can click on the links and get more information. There's a fact sheet, and then there are very detailed application instructions. So even though Ford is, it's a complicated fellowship, as probably you saw just with what the requirements are, right? It's sort of a complex package, but they are very specific and very detailed, and they give a lot of instructions. They tell you exactly which questions you should engage with in each essay. So I think they're extremely helpful. And I think all that information is very, very valuable, and it's very readily available. So definitely don't overlook that. And then this is sort of the same for the dissertation fellowship, right? Identical. They have eligibility information, they have fact sheet as well, and they also have application instructions. So be sure to navigate to the correct fellowship for yourself, and then definitely go to all the information that they're providing. You can also see past winners, of course, as we recommend all the time, to sort of get yourself familiar. And then look around this areas, right? Networking, mentoring. What are they about? Why is sports so focused on those things? Because again, it helps you write a more successful and more purposeful essays. Eligible fields of study lists. Look for your field of study to confirm eligibility. And again, confirm, make sure that this year the competition, nothing's changed, that everything still stays the same, but those are the fields of study that are normally eligible for it. And then be certain when you're looking, they also have very specific application instructions and very specific requirements about formatting, right? For example, they say applicants must use 0.5 inches left and right margins for their essays. They are extremely specific. Don't overlook it, because otherwise, if it's not formatted correctly, it might not be uploaded correctly, and you might lose your application for very silly sort of mistakes, right? They tell you what margins at the top and bottom. They tell you that it's 12-point font. They tell you some of the essays, as I mentioned earlier, you can have double spaces in certain parts, but then single spaces in other parts. So again, just taking your time to sort of carefully review formatting instructions for your documents and making sure that everything is formatted correctly before you submit.